Yo, what's up, man? If you're watching this, it's basically me from the future. And as unbelievable as it's gonna sound, it's all gonna work out just fine. But when I heard this same thing when I was 20 years old, and you're probably around 15 years old right now, I will tell you that I didn't believe it. I thought it was a bunch of blarney. I thought it's nonsense. And, the older folk, per se, were like, oh, don't worry, it's all gonna work out. No worries, no worries. And I know it's hard to believe because I literally, you know, you probably know this at your current position and time, it's not really easy. It's not straightforward. It's confusing. There's no real true path, and there's a lot of, let's say, issues just going on in general. And what I will say is what you need to do to kind of get to this point is the actions that you're taking. Just basically do what I did, which is weird to say because you don't know it yet. But I basically was taking the disciplined actions and steps. The habits that we're talking about that we kind of kept over the years are going to be, waking up and drinking that liter, 2 liters of water. And there's been years, for multiple years, after the fact that I lost a lot of these habits, but these habits are what made us basically successful. And if I kept them for longer, and I'm going to reintroduce them now at this time of recording and in the future. Basically, wake up, drink that 1, 2 liters of water. Just it will flush out the system, get your brain going, all the things. That's an easy one. And then the usual, you're waking up, showering, if you shave, maybe not every day, right? But depends on the situation. And eventually, there were times, when we started working, that I started to shave and shampoo and conditioning every day, and that's not really healthy, but we do it for 2 seconds, and kind of wash it off. And so that's more like grooming and consumption and stuff. But a big thing that I wish I did, which I will tell us, is exercising and working out more. Because the biggest lesson I'm learning now is that financially, like, it just takes pretty much your brain and obviously who your network is your net worth. And as we knew, whether back then or now, we were never really like fake with people to then kind of that expression of like grabbing onto the other person for their success. We were never like that, and we never became like that, and we just keep it going, being trusting ourselves and the confidence and all the other steps that allowed us to become confident. Never forget those, because I don't forget it now. But I'm recording this because it's like I'm speaking to you, and maybe I will make a future one for where I am right now in my age for an explanation of what we should keep on going with, right? So, for example, when I was 15, aka now, when we were going into that final spoken Spanish final exam, we were feeling scared. And I remember, opening that doorknob, and I put my hand on the doorknob, and I was so scared. And then, I looked at my hand on the doorknob, and I was like, we practiced, we literally studied, we just put so much effort into the thing. And there was this, sweep of like anger, frustration, but also this relief, because I was like, so I feel scared and anxious about this, final exam. But the truth is what? We prepared so hard to do what? To be scared at the end? To be like afraid of failure, when we knew that we were more than prepared for success. And so that was like that first affirmation of like Nike's logo, just do it. It's like, yo, man, just do it. We already did the work. It's like, now you just need to do one more round. It just happens to be official, but like, it's just in our head, right? It's just a different environment, same old actions. And then from there, we had some tough familial times. And in that time, I remember theater acting specifically, saved our life like crazy, in the sense of 4 to 6 hours just dealing with the cast, dealing with those older folks. When we were 15, there were folks in 25-year olds, 30 years old, that we were, in a different, it's almost like a perspective of life that they were able to give us, and they were treating us like equals, which that's priceless. And getting their viewpoint of how the future looks like and how much, better we can do just on our own. So don't take that for granted, put in that effort. And I know it's very tiring, and, we had a lot of energy back then, and I'm getting older, I'm losing my energy, you could say. But we're still young, and we still got to keep on going. And you know after the fact, what happened? We got into the number one school in the world, college specifically, engineering degree. You actually graduated, yeah, with an industrial engineering degree from Georgia Tech. And for anybody who's watching, that's basically not my younger self, that's not a flex. That's an accident, because we got in for business, which we know we love: business, economics, entrepreneurship, and everything, more in that financial type of space. And we got in for business, and we did a accidental click of the button, and it wasn't really an accident, but it was pretty much like, hey, if you're going to go to college, you better do it for doctor, lawyer, engineer. And we ended up going through the engineering degree, and eventually we got out. And throughout the whole time, like, I love to be around smart people, but the peers, not everyone was thinking in that, financial savvy kind of mindset, but we still grinded. We were getting involved with everything crypto, the stock market. And eventually, what you won't believe is we got, our goal of taking care of everything for our inner circle, that too by trading both within the stock market and the cryptocurrency market, because the stock market is open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. EST. And we had that itch of like, what the heck, man? Like, we want to use our brain, but really spend more time, not time to make money, but time to research, time to literally make money in front of our own eyes based on our own skill through, technical analysis, fundamental analysis, and of course, the markets have to support slash the economy. And what happened? Graduated, started earning that W-2 income, started making some right financial moves. Yeah, some other, financial burdens came along, but guess what? Within a year, we got our home, finally, I guess you could say. And the biggest lesson I learned was, man, it's not about getting the dang thing. Now we have 360 months of payments. In other words, 30 years times 12 months for a 30-year mortgage. And not going to say it was easy. And the house is not paid off. We're still going along. But what would I have done differently? Honestly, what happened is when we got the place, our net worth was going up. And obviously, like, things were tight financially, but our net worth on paper was going up, and just wanted more cash flow, needed more cash flow. And this part, whether it's my own younger self or anybody who just was seeing the future, would never ever believe, at least, in the technological advanced society we're in, there's a thing called, the pandemic that happened where people are just indoors for years, and the internet just kind of hockey sticked in terms of a graph, and it took off. And this part, I don't expect any of us to even believe it would happen, but it's just the truth. And what happened is interest rates were really low. And what I didn't know when I needed to know is that function of the economy, just like basic economics, right? Demand and supply. So what happened is when this pandemic thing happened, there was a lot of activity that just stopped in the economy. And what does that mean in English? What that meant was, well, hey, because there's no activity from an economic standpoint going on, you need to stimulate the economy. You need to encourage people to say, hey, this thing called money is what we've been saying is like the value that's being generated, shared, exchanged, the velocity of money. If you can Google that concept. And in the future, we'll get into like AI, and there's like another version of Google, which is like the all-knowing Google called like ChatGPT. And these type of things, you'll learn more as I learn more. Let's put it like that. So point being, the economy, the government was basically giving out money at like, let's say 0%, basically free to borrow. And borrowing is not good or nor bad, just depends what you do with it. And so what we did, not knowing, but maybe we should have, is basically we got the mortgage at a 4.375 or 4.385% to my memory interest rate. And so what happened is eventually rates went too close to zero. And what that really means is that when you're looking at certain just there's different rates for credit cards, like mortgages, like different just financial products in general when it comes to lending type of products and services. And so there's basically your prime rate plus like an APR. And so in English, that means if rates were zero, then basically if a company was saying, hey, we'll give you an interest rate of 2.75%, then basically the understanding is they're getting money, somebody's getting money at 0%. But when they get that 0%, they're charging whatever fee on top. And so, like, I'm simplifying it for us, we refinance from 4.385 to 2.75% for a 30-year mortgage. We refinanced, but we did not cash out refinance, which means we could have had an extra, just roughly, right, like an extra 100 grand cash in our hands, or even more, and we could have done a lot more with that. So no regrets, but just a fact. And so now if we wanted to cash out refinance, we could pull out even more money. But how that works is that interest rates, now they're a bit higher. So if I was to do the same thing, it'd be like, let's say 6, 7, 8%, assuming like, decent credit and perfect credit score. And you'll learn a lot about credit score. You didn't really need to do anything. It kind of just worked out because, we've had good habits financially, saving and spending less than we're earning. And over the years, a lot of things, they've changed, trust me. And it's like a different fashion of life, because it's not just us, it's not just like us alone. There's eventually you'll find a partner. It's making me tear up like a little. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. So this future, I want to reel too much because you have to go through the romantic life, the love life, all the stuff to see what's on the other side. Let's put it like that. But I'm telling you, no matter how stressed or man, is everything going to just blow up? Am I going to be a failure? Like the biggest thing we've always had, which is a trait of the most successful people in the world. And we've always known this, but I'll say it to us once more. What got us here won't get us there. And we've done a lot of great steps to get here. And me, of the future, from this perspective, I'm looking for a lot more. And I know a lot has to go on for us to get from where we are now to the next step. But what I will say is you still got to get here. And for you to get here, you can do it. But the biggest quality you need to keep on remembering is the same thing we've been telling to ourselves for years. It's a simple word called resilience. Didn't matter when we didn't know Jack. Didn't matter when, honestly, like literally, if we were like, not to use slurs, but if we didn't know anything at all, we knew what we could do is what? Put in the effort, have the grit to keep on going. And without that, we wouldn't be here because, all our lives, I used to say the same thing, like, I'm not so smart. And if anything, like, I'm actually like stupid or something, you know what I mean? And that's that self talk that it doesn't help. But what it kind of, what dawned on me eventually later is like, and I'm not saying that, we're like Einstein and geniuses out here. But what I am saying is like, hey, we're not as stupid as we thought. And so when we had that discipline, those steps, these actions that we took, they're priceless because time is priceless because it doesn't come back to us. And so we spent our time. And I know we haven't slept a lot over the years. Let's put it like that. But guess what? I think we've always known that we want an accelerated outcome to then decide what we want to do with the time that's remaining versus spending the time dilly-dallying, and then you have what do you have to show for it, and then you still have to keep on going. And that's assuming that nothing's enough by spending a normal amount of time. But the biggest thing I needed to know was what? Extraordinary. That word is extraordinary. Extraordinary results do not come from ordinary actions. So if you're doing what everyone else is doing, which we haven't really done, but it's not like we were perfect either to be like, 0 to billion or something like this either. So, we've taken a lot of steps and we've taken some extraordinary steps. And the biggest lesson I'll say is, had I known it earlier, like I'm telling you now, basically, if somehow, time travel is real, you'll see it. It's these 3 letters, TAM. TAM, total addressable market. If you're involved with anything, no matter how much you love it or anything passion wise, and I know, you're probably beatboxing right now, and what you won't believe is some crazy stuff. Like we eventually, go on to host, and it's not just alone, but it's like a, good camaraderie, good team, America's largest international beatbox battle event. And we know how much that meant to us because we actually ended up, getting into this credit cards, miles, point space, and using, this cashback and all these currencies. Because one day we eventually Google, how do you save money while spending money? And like, it's counterintuitive, right? Like if you're spending $1, like how the heck can you, get even a penny back because we were so used to cash. So eventually you'll realize like, okay, there's a way to siphon off value, but then use that to create more value. And the total addressable market for everything beatbox, it's fabulous-ish if you have the connection to the very top. But in our case, it's not time wasted. There was a lot of experience, but if we could redo it again, right? I'm not saying don't follow the passion, but I am saying have something where the total addressable market for the time you're spending is like insane value. So in other words, if let's just say these are like kind of made up numbers, but roughly, right? Like high level, if total economy of beatboxing is worth $1 million, then if you have 100% of a million or maybe 30% of a million, just 30, that's like 300K. And I'm not saying that's like recurring revenue or otherwise, but if you're making 300K a year, like that's not bad at all, right? But that isn't the case in this situation. But now if you have a total addressable market of, let's say, 100 billion, if you make even 0.5% of that, 1% is a billion, 0.5% is 500 million, even if what? You have 10% less of that, you still have 50 million, right? And again, it's not like year over year revenue, but you're involved in this market where now, 50 million worth of whatever, how do you extract the value? By exchanging what value that 50 mil is. So to not be confusing, what I'm saying is, imagine you are like a broker for, the richest of the rich. Usually those transactions, a lot of money is being, just transacted. And then if you're getting X amount percentage of that, right, you just do the math. That just sounds like, example, $100 million deal. you have something like, let's just say even 1%, that's a million. Then you have multiple deals, you do the math, it's kind of crazy. And so on the inverse, if you have 100% of something that's, just say 10,000, like you got 10,000 bucks, that's great. But like that's 100%. There's nothing more. The total addressable market stops there. So man, there's a lot of stuff, I would say, but I just wanted to share this because even though if you came this far, someone who's not my younger self watching this, my younger self would benefit by watching this. And even you, I'm saying it like I'm just an average person. I've told that to myself my whole life, but I've definitely not just taken average steps. I'll also say that. So if you came this far, you can do it too, is what I want to share with us because I went from I can't do anything like that was the mindset. Like, I don't know. Like, I just literally, I wanted it so bad and I knew it would work out, right? But I also felt in the moment, in the present, that there was nothing that was like giving me that benefit of like, yes, it's going to work out. Because all the hand, like, it felt like the cards were stacked against me. But like, clearly things like worked out fine and better. But it's because we also believed in ourselves eventually to just say, like, screw it, man. Like, we're going to take it like this blind confidence. And that's the biggest thing we never want to let go because if we're confident, we can at least move forward, take action, keep it going. But guess what? If you're just stuck in your own misery and sorrow, which we also had the period of this for a few years of just not doing like anything but like you realize you're at rock bottom. And then guess what? There's no other way downwards to go. You're already at the bottom. And that's when that realization, which I wish I had when I was younger, but eventually we did, like 10 plus years later, of what direction can you go from the bottom? The only way is upwards, right? So that's it. And when you realize that, there is no more rock bottom because screw getting to the bottom. Just keep on being resilient. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. So if we came this far and if you came this far, thanks for coming to the end and there'll be more. So to anyone else who's watching, thanks. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, all the things, and see you in the next one. Peace.